What is the top skill that you need when you are conducting a UX interview? You need to make that connection with your participant as soon as possible. To do this, you need to build rapport and fast. Interviews can make people nervous. So, making that participant feel comfortable as soon as possible is so critical. The sooner you get that participant's trust, the deeper you can go into conversations with them. I'm going to tell you how to build that connection with just one magic question. I know when you're starting off an interview, you want to say, "Tell me about yourself." But you need to be careful when you are doing that because people like to talk about themselves. And when they are experts in their field, they tend to go down into the weeds into way more detail than you ever really wanted to hear when you say, "Tell me about yourself." They might assume that you know what their job is just from hearing their title. But a lot of times, job titles don't make a lot of sense to people outside of the industry or the company. So they might dive right into the details of what that job is without explaining that high level of what the job role is. The best way to cut through the weeds and to get rid of all those details that you really don't want to know when you say, "Tell me about yourself," is this one interview question. Talk to me like I'm a 10-year-old child and very briefly, tell me what you do. And this one question is like the magic bullet that builds rapport and gets you to the information you need sooner. So let me tell you how. Let's be honest. For most interviews, what the person does for a living isn't really relevant to the information that you're seeking that day. You're just not really looking for a long life story or some super detailed description of what they do in their job. You are breaking the ice and getting them to open up a little bit and talk about themselves. Since asking about their job is really more of an icebreaker, by saying, "Talk to me like I'm a 10-year-old child and tell me what you do." By saying that, this keeps their description of their job at a higher level. It guides them to be brief. And hopefully, they'll do just that. We know that people do love to talk about themselves. It's a comfortable topic. They know themselves pretty well, so it's easy to tell others about what they do. And it really does build rapport because you get them warmed up and talking about something they're comfortable with. So, I want to break down why the phrase, "Talk to me like I'm a 10-year-old child," and very briefly, "Tell me what you do." I want to talk about why that is so magical. And there's a number of reasons. First, it's because it's short and sweet. It frames their approach to answering your question. You're asking them to focus on what is really important by saying, "Be brief," essentially. And by having them focus their answer, that trims the time they're going to talk about themselves and leaves more time for your interview, which is really why you're there. The second thing that's so magical about "Talk to me like I'm a 10-year-old and very briefly tell me what you do," the second thing is it makes them laugh and actually chuckle a little bit. I've never had a person who was offended or angry or didn't understand what I meant. I've never had a person who took this the wrong way or thought I was offending them or anything by asking them to frame it for a 10-year-old's perspective. Never had any issues with that. By saying that, that actually is unexpected and it makes them kind of chuckle and kind of laugh. And when they do, that laughter and that humor is a good connection to build rapport. Your participant sees that you're a human being and you kind of cracked a joke, and that's a cool thing. So it makes it a little bit lighthearted and takes some of the tension away from the interview. Third, for those who are maybe parents or teachers or have a 10-year-old in their life, this statement is so relatable. They get it. They need to keep it simple They know that they need to break things down and not use a lot of technical jargon or fancy words. And they also know they need to keep it brief because a 10-year-old's attention span is super short. So it's very relatable when you say, talk to me like I'm a 10-year-old. And then finally, it helps them to keep it simple. Like I said, it frames their approach into giving you the answer to that question. Talking to a 10-year-old with a bunch of professional abbreviations or terminology is not going to be very effective. And so hopefully they understand that and kind of trim some of that fat and keep that discussion and the description of what they do lighter and simpler to understand. And also, hopefully it keeps them out of the weeds. So, what do you think of phrase, talk to me like I'm a 10-year-old child, and very briefly, tell me what you do? Do you think that you could use that in an upcoming interview? Let me know what you think of this phrase as a way to build rapport and to kick off a UX interview in the comments.